The sun rose slowly over the Nile, sending warm golden light across the temples, fields, and quiet villages, while the people of ancient Egypt began another day filled with rituals, work, and dreams of the mysterious world beyond death. To the Egyptians, life was precious, but the afterlife was even more important, a grand continuation where souls could live forever if they were properly prepared. Inside the House of Life, a place where priests and healers studied sacred knowledge, the walls were covered with colorful paintings showing gods guiding souls through magical landscapes. Here, the journey to the afterlife was not feared but embraced, like a second sunrise waiting for every true believer. Children grew up hearing stories of the Ka and the Ba to spiritual forms that lived inside every person. The Ka was like the life force that needed food and offerings even after death, while the Ba was a bird-like spirit that could fly between the worlds of the living and the dead. To keep these souls safe and strong, Egyptians believed the body had to be preserved, leading to the extraordinary process of mummification. In a quiet chamber near the temple, the embalming priests prepared the body of a nobleman who had just passed away. The room smelled of incense, myrrh, and fragrant oils, creating an atmosphere both solemn and sacred. Priests wore jackal-headed masks to honor Anubis, the god who protected the dead and guided them to the next realm. With careful movements, the priests cleaned the body and purified it with sacred water from the Nile. They removed the organs carefully, placing the liver, stomach, lungs, and intestines into beautifully carved canopic jars guarded by protective gods. Only the heart remained inside the body, for it was believed to contain a person's thoughts, memories, and moral character. The brain was removed with special tools, a method so unusual that even children hearing the story for the first time were amazed and slightly puzzled. But Egyptians believed the brain was not important for the afterlife. The heart was what mattered most. With the body prepared, the priests covered it in natron, a natural salt that dried the skin and prevented decay. For 40 days, the body rested in natron beds, absorbing the desert dryness until it became light, firm, and ready for the next stage. During this time, the family brought offerings of bread, flowers, and perfume to honor the departed soul. They prayed that the gods would accept their loved one and welcome him into the eternal fields. Once the 40 days passed, the priests returned to work with renewed reverence. They rubbed the body with sacred oils, lotus, cedar, and frankincense to restore its softness and scent. Then the wrapping began, a process that could take weeks, requiring hundreds of feet of linen. The priests worked layer by layer, wrapping arms, legs, fingers, toes, and torso with precise technique. They placed charms and amulets between the layers, tiny treasures shaped like scarabs, eyes, and protective symbols. Each amulet had a purpose: to guard the heart, to repel evil spirits, or to give strength during the dangerous journey through the underworld. One of the most important objects was the heart scarab, engraved with magical words meant to silence the heart during judgment. The Egyptians believed that if the heart spoke too much about a person's mistakes, it could ruin their chance at eternal life. So the heart scarab pleaded, "Do not stand as a witness against me," offering the deceased a gentle shield during the final trial. After countless layers of linen, the mummy began to look more like a carefully shaped statue than a body. Gold paint was brushed lightly across the outer wrappings, giving the mummy a radiant glow under torchlight. Finally, the face mask was placed, often made of gold for royalty and shaped to resemble the person at their best, a version ready to live forever. With the mummy complete, it was placed inside a beautifully decorated coffin covered in hieroglyphs and protective artwork. Some coffins had bright images of Nut, the sky goddess, spreading her wings to guard the deceased like a loving mother. Others showed Osiris, the god of resurrection, welcoming the soul into the eternal kingdom. The coffin was then placed into a larger sarcophagus made of wood, stone, or even granite, depending on the family's importance and wealth. The sarcophagus rested inside a tomb filled with treasures the person might need in the afterlife: food, clothing, weapons, ornaments, and small statues of servants. These statues, called shabti, were believed to come alive in the afterlife and help with chores, ensuring that the deceased could relax in paradise. Families hired musicians, dancers, and mourners to accompany the funeral procession through the village. People cried loudly, not only from sadness, but also to show respect, believing their voices helped guide the soul toward the next world. Priests carried incense burners, creating fragrant clouds that drifted above the crowd like little blessings floating into the sky. As the procession reached the tomb, the opening of the mouth ceremony began. A priest touched special tools to the mummy's face, symbolically restoring the senses needed in the afterlife: sight, smell, breath, and speech. This ritual allowed the spirit to wake gently, ready to begin its journey through the mysterious gates of the underworld. Once the coffin was sealed inside the tomb, the entrance was closed with stone blocks to protect the sacred chamber from both humans and wandering spirits. Families left food and drink offerings outside the tomb for many days, whispering prayers and telling stories about their loved one to keep the memory alive. They believed that as long as a person's name was remembered, their soul would never fade. Inside the tomb, the mummy lay in peaceful silence, surrounded by paintings of the afterlife: lush green fields, cool waters, fruit trees, musicians, and endless sunlight. These images were not just decoration. They were magical maps showing the soul where to go and who to trust. They guided the spirit through dark tunnels, past fearsome creatures, across rivers of fire, and into the Hall of Judgment. Here, the heart would be weighed against the feather of truth by Osiris and the 42 judges of the underworld. If the heart was light and pure, the soul would pass and enter the field of reeds, a perfect version of Egypt where happiness lasted forever. But if the heart was too heavy with wrongdoing, it would be devoured by Ammit, a terrifying creature part lion, part crocodile, part hippo. This belief made every Egyptian determined to live a good life filled with kindness, honesty, and respect. Living well on earth meant living forever in the afterlife, and the mummification process helped carry the soul safely between these two worlds. Through the art of preservation, Egyptians connected body, spirit, memory, and eternity in a way that still inspires us today. So, when we see mummies in museums, wrapped tightly in linen and sleeping quietly in their ancient coffins, we are not looking at something frightening. We are looking at a people's dream of eternal life, carefully crafted with love, respect, and unwavering hope. And the story of mummies reminds us that even thousands of years ago, humans longed for the same things we long for now: peace, remembrance, and a life that matters beyond the final breath. Deep within the silent darkness of the tomb, where only a faint scent of resin lingered in the still air, the journey of the soul continued along pathways no living person had ever seen. Pathways described only in sacred texts and whispered by priests who studied the mysteries of the afterlife. The mummy remained motionless in its decorated coffin, but the spirit inside awakened, rising like a tiny spark of light ready to face the vast unknown. The Ba, with wings like a bird, lifted from the linen-wrapped body and fluttered into a realm beyond time, guided only by memory, prayers, and the protective symbols painted on the tomb walls. Around it, the underworld known as the Duat unfolded like a dream mixed with both beauty and danger, filled with glowing rivers, giant gates, serpent guardians, and fields that shimmered beneath the purple sky. The spirit's first challenge was to pass through the gate of the horizon, guarded by enormous serpents whose eyes glowed like burning embers. But the Ba spoke the sacred words painted on the coffin, phrases that had been memorized by priests and carved into the walls with great care, and the serpents stepped aside, letting the soul continue unharmed. As the spirit drifted deeper into the Duat, echoing voices of ancient gods whispered through the air, some guiding, some testing, and some watching with silent curiosity. There were lakes of fire glowing like molten gold, forests made of obsidian trees, and bridges shaped like crescent moons suspended over shadowy waters. Every step was a reminder that the afterlife was not simply a place of rest, but a grand adventure that demanded courage and purity. The spirit soon encountered a towering figure with the head of a falcon, Horus, the protector who examined the soul with bright, sharp eyes. Horus measured the strength of the soul's determination and allowed it to pass, knowing that only those with true hearts could endure what lay ahead. Further along, the spirit met Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, standing at a desk of glowing stone with scrolls of shimmering light. Thoth was the recorder of truth, and he gently reminded the soul that every action in life, every kindness, and every misstep followed a person into eternity, shaping the weight of the heart that would soon be judged. The path eventually led the soul into a chamber where the walls seemed to breathe with ancient magic. Here, the soul found strange creatures, giant scorpions, jackal spirits, and guardians shaped from the dust of forgotten ages. But the amulets hidden between the mummy's wrappings glowed softly, creating a protective barrier that shone like moonlight and kept the dangers at bay. Meanwhile, back in the world of the living, the family continued to honor the deceased. They brought bread, beer, figs, and jars of milk to the offering table, believing the Ka, the life force, would absorb the essence of the food even if the physical body could not. Children placed flowers at the door of the tomb, whispering stories about their loved one so the spirit would know it had not been forgotten. Inside the duat, the spirit approached the most important and terrifying place of all, the Hall of Two Truths. Here, Osiris sat on a grand throne, wearing the white Atef crown and holding the crook and flail, symbols of kingship and justice. The hall shimmered with candles that burned without ever melting, and the air was filled with the low hum of mysterious magic. 42 judges lined the room, each representing a different moral truth, and each one ready to listen as the heart of the deceased was tested. Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian, stepped forward carrying an ancient scale polished to perfection. On one side he placed the feather of Mat, the symbol of truth and harmony. On the other, he placed the person's heart. The moment felt heavy and silent, as if the entire universe were holding its breath. If the heart was pure light, as the feather, the soul would be allowed to live forever in paradise. But if the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, Amit the devourer waited nearby, licking her crocodile-like jaws, ready to destroy the soul forever. The spirit watched as the scale trembled softly, glowing faintly under the watchful eyes of the gods. The magical heart scarab, placed long ago during mummification, whispered gentle words reminding the heart to remain calm and steady. Slowly, the scale tipped gently toward the feather, signaling a life lived with enough goodness to earn a peaceful eternity. Osiris nodded with calm approval, and a warm breeze swept through the hall, a sign that the gods accepted the soul's passage. Thoth recorded the outcome with a quick stroke of his shining pen, preserving the moment for eternity in the Book of the Dead. With judgment passed, the spirit floated gratefully toward the light that formed at the far end of the hall, a doorway leading to everlasting peace. Beyond the doorway, the field of reeds opened like a vast, perfect reflection of Egypt itself, except everything was more beautiful, more fertile, and more radiant than anything on earth. Rivers shimmered with crystal clarity, tall green reeds swayed in gentle breezes, and the sunlight never burned too bright. Here, the soul found fields that grew endlessly, orchards that never spoiled, and cottages that felt warm, familiar, and welcoming. In this paradise, people could eat fresh bread, drink cool water, and relax beneath shady date palms. Musicians played soft melodies, children laughed as they chased butterflies made of shimmering dust, and families reunited after long separations. Even kings and commoners were equal in this peaceful realm, sharing the same sunlight and the same eternal joy. Shakti statues placed in the tomb came to life here, standing ready to help with any work that needed to be done even though there wasn't too much work at all. They carried water, tended fields, and brought fresh fruit to the soul, fulfilling the purpose they had been given thousands of years ago. Everything in the field of reeds existed to bring comfort, happiness, and contentment to those who had earned their rest. Meanwhile, back in the world of the living, time marched on. Sandstorms swept across old tomb entrances, hiding them from view. Temples rose and fell, kings ruled and passed, and the Nile continued its eternal cycle of flooding and renewal. Yet, inside the silent tombs, the mummies remained safe, their stories preserved in darkness, waiting for curious minds thousands of years later. When archaeologists finally uncovered these resting places, they found carefully wrapped bodies, jars, amulets, paintings, and treasures untouched by time. Each discovery helped tell the story of how the ancient Egyptians viewed life, death, and everything beyond. The mummies revealed a civilization that believed deeply in memory, love, and the promise of eternity. Today, when we look at these mummies behind glass displays, we are not just observing ancient remains. We are witnessing a people's hope for forever, a hope so strong they wrapped it in linen, carved it in stone, and painted it across the walls of time. Their belief in the afterlife was not a fearful escape, but a beautiful dream of endless joy, fairness, and reunion with loved ones. And so, the story of mummies and the afterlife continues to fascinate the world, reminding us that deep inside every human heart, no matter the century, lives a desire for meaning, remembrance, and the comforting idea that life might extend beyond the horizon we can see. The Egyptians honored that dream with rituals, magic, and boundless devotion, leaving behind one of the most extraordinary legacies in human history. Their mummies sleep quietly now, but their message remains awake and shining, that life is precious, that goodness matters, and that the hope for eternity is one of the most powerful forces humanity has ever known.